Alright, Steve, so here's the final iteration of your bicycle before it gets dismantled and sent to you. So I'm going to make a series of videos, kind of the different systems or components, so that when it shows up at your door, you have an idea what you're looking at and kind of how things work. So I'm going to start with just basically how it rides, because it's going to be a little different than what you're used to. So you can see your brake levers here. These are your brake and shifter levers. So these levers down here push to the side, like so. And that's how you shift gears. So kind of unusual based on what you've seen. The other side, it's the same concept. The smaller lever on the inside pushes one way, shifts one way. The bigger lever, the whole thing shifts the other way. And then both of them, when you pull the lever back towards the bar, it brakes. So you have sort of integrated shifters and brake levers, which is going to be sort of a new thing. It'll take some practice. I could sort of go through what shifts what, but I think you'll figure it out fairly quickly, and you can call me if you have questions. But the right hand is for the rear brake and the rear shifter. So your right hand is doing back here on your rear derailleur, rear brake, and left hand, of course, is the opposite. So one thing I will let you know is that when you shift with your left hand, you're shifting from the small ring on the inside to the big ring on the outside. You have two chain rings up front. It usually takes quite a bit of throw. In other words, you have to move the lever pretty far over to get it to shift. So you'll kind of feel that if you push it just a little bit, it clicks or something, but doesn't make much happen. So keep that in mind. The shifting back with the black lever back into the small ring, that's pretty easy. You'll hear kind of a pop and it'll go. It's hard to demonstrate because you really have to be pedaling while you shift. And I want to try and make this video while I'm out riding in the street. In terms of riding with these handlebars and levers, these are called drop bars. This will probably be a little new also. So you have three ways you can do it. You can put your hands up on top, here around the grip tape. That's called riding on the tops. That's nice and comfortable because you're upright. But you don't have access to your brakes from up here. You have to move your hand to get to your brake levers. So you want to be careful when riding around town, riding in traffic, because that can be a little sketchy. If you put your hands up here, I'm not on the bike, but you can see that's sort of your standard grip. Your two fingers are on the bottom, usually your index finger around the front, and your thumb over the top. This is called riding on the hoods. And this is where you want to learn to spend most of your time. And I say learn because it will take a little bit of getting used to. It's a different position. You'll probably be a little more stretched out than typical. But when you're up on the tops, riding along, you have your brake lever right there, and so it's quick. On the brake lever, the further down you can pull, the more force you can put just because you have more leverage. But it gets kind of tricky for your hand just because you're stretched out. If you're up here nice and comfortable, everything's close, that'll probably work, and you may end up getting all your fingers on that brake lever. So just kind of play around. Some people will put all their fingers, some people maybe a couple, whatever works. You can ride with your hands back here just a little bit also, sort of in between these two spots. You're close to your levers, but you still do have to move them in order to shift and brake. So your third option is called down in the drops. You can have your hands, you can see it flattens out a little here, and it's flat again here. You can put them all the way down here. You can put them in here. That's called riding in the drops. Down here, again, you're far away from your brake levers. It works, descending downhill. If you're on a long flat road, you want to be aerodynamic and get down really low, but not what you want to do in traffic, and not usually for climbing. If you're going slowly, leaned all the way down here, is going to sort of shorten up your rib cage and compress your stomach, and you won't have real good breath from down there. Here works pretty well. You have access to your brake levers. You can shift from here, but most people don't ride down here all the time, again, because it bends you over quite a bit. You may feel comfortable down here, and that's great, but I would probably expect to see you up here more often than not. Obviously the right hand is all the same, I'm just filming with that hand. So that explains the function of your brake levers. The brakes themselves, you can see here in the back, kind of what you're used to in terms of this pad is going to push on the rim itself on either side. The trouble with this type of brake is you don't have much adjustment. So I have it set up, I think, pretty well. Hopefully you don't have to mess with it too much. But if you find yourself, you're riding down the road, you're trying to use the brake lever, and when you pull on this lever, you know, instead of stopping there, it comes all the way down to the bar. That means you need to tighten this cable. In order to tighten it, you need to loosen this bolt. It's a 5mm Allen bolt, and then pull this cable towards you a little bit. That'll take some of the cable out of the housing and end up pushing the pads closer to the rim. It's one of those things you'll probably, when you first do it, everything will pop open and you'll be totally out of whack, so maybe try and mark it with a marker or something. Once you do it once or twice, it becomes a little more understandable. So fairly straightforward. The other side here, basically the same, but you have this little, see if I can get it for you. You see the little ball on the end of this cable? That ball hooks into the bottom of the brake. So when you want to take your wheel out of the rim, you need to unhook that ball. It's a little hard one-handed, it's pretty simple two-handed. But you can see how it comes out, and then it pops out through this little slot in the brake. The easiest thing to do is to pinch the brakes. I'll sort of try and show you. Pinch them together with one hand, either by the pads or by the whole arms, and then with the other hand you can grab this ball and put it down into the slot. Sorry for the shaky video, I'm apparently not an expert at this, but it is doable one-handed to flip it down in there. The front brake, you have a disc. Again, you don't have much adjustment, so if your brake lever is traveling, you know, you pull your brake lever, it stops about there, that's probably pretty good. If it travels all the way down to the bar, that means you need to tighten your brake, which involves, again, 5mm Allen. You would loosen this bolt, pull some cable down, or push this pivoting arm up, however you want to look at it, and then retighten it. It won't take much, just a couple of millimeters. Once you have the cable tightened, you have two adjustments here. This red dial, there's one on the inside of the brake also. If you turn this red dial as you're looking at it clockwise, that will essentially move the outer pad in towards the rotor. So that will basically tighten the brake. On the other side of the wheel, I'll try and spin this around here. You can see again you have that red dial. It's kind of hard to get to, but you can fish your hands through the spokes. As you're looking at it, if you turn it clockwise, it moves that pad towards the rotor, tightens the brake. Counterclockwise, moves it away. And this is kind of hard to see, but I'm going to hope to zoom in and from maybe this angle. But you can see the rotor down there going through the brake. And so what you want to look at is, if you ever see, you hear the rotor maybe rubbing on the pads or something, you can get at it at this angle and look at it. And as you turn those dials, you see them on the left and the right, you can turn those dials in and out and get it to where they're just off the rotor, just barely, and then you should be in pretty good shape. So that's an adjustment you hopefully won't have to make. I'll set it up well, it's working well now, and hopefully when it gets to you, it still is everything, you know, still is pretty happy. So there's your brake system.